Obviously, you've all heard the news. I got told about Charles having to pull out and needing a backup. I always say that I will do these things. I am that guy. I am that guy that will do anytime, anywhere, any weight, whatever it is.
So this was supposed to be another high-building piece for UFC 294 Islam versus Charles to another cold open, maybe a 5-minute video where I pushed a main event as the greatest thing ever since the last main events when MMA strikes again.
Is Charles Oliveira out of his fight with Islam, and is Alex Volkanovski in?
Yes.
We have a new headliner for UFC 294, and I guess I have to do it all over again.
Round 5 of sparring last night. Splits his eyebrow wide open. Obviously, can't fly out there with that, you know what I mean?
Maybe we should have seen this coming.
The Volkanovski crew, these guys are just absolute studs, man. He jumps in and he accepts the fight.
This rematch between two of the pound-for-pound best fighters on the planet was destined to have.
Volkanovski taking this fight on short notice, huge respect for that.
Lightweight world champion versus featherweight world champion. A classic fight in Perth behind him, and an absolutely massive rematch in Abu Dhabi awaits.
I'm very well. New opponent, same goal.
This is quite possibly the greatest matchup in the UFC today.
How about this? Alexander Volkanovski, UFC featherweight champion, and he's trying to become the UFC lightweight champion in just a few days from now.
No, I'm not talking about pay-per-view buys, ticket sales, social media numbers, none of that skill for skill. This is the absolute pinnacle of our sport. So everyone chill the fuck out. I got this.
Costa's hurt, you know, all the rumors that are flying around, we got it done. So, the number 4 welterweight in the world, Khamzat Chimaev, is moving up the middleweight, and he will face the number 1 welterweight in the world, Kamaru Usman.
Costa's hurt and all the rumors that are flying around. We got it done. So the number 4 welterweight in the world, How's Archer Maya was moving up the middleweight, and he will face the number 1 welterweight in the world, Kamaru Usman.
A crazy 24 hours, but you know, we made it happen.
Honestly, no offense to the backup fighter in Gamrot, but this is the best matchup in the company. And I'll be damned if I don't do a deeper dive on this. If I wasn't too sure the inclusion of Khamzat versus Usman just did it for me. This event didn't regress, it got better. And so here we go, once again, the 2 top fights with a lot on the line and a whole lot to cover.
Paulo Costa went public, said he had surgery 3 weeks ago. Is there any danger that that fight could be off?
Yeah, it's possible.
In hindsight, we should have seen this coming when Costco's Khamzat was announced. The MMA world was excited yet cautious.
Here you go again. Unbelievable. 2 weeks ago I did the surgery, and today doctor says, Paul, you need to reopen this because the infection come back, so you need to reopen and clean everything.
We were mad at the guy, but that's serious enough for the doctors to intervene. And here's hoping Costa recovers soon. Khamzat was without an opponent, but not for too long. Khamzat is a monster, and I'm sure a lot of fighters are not too keen on facing this guy on short notice. But the UFC delivered, and a former champion, a welterweight great, who not too long ago was the pound-for-pound king, will be the replacement fighter.
Ooh, that would be a great fight. But wow, that's a good fight, you know, because Kamaru's back training with us at Kill Cliff FC. He's there every day now. But that would be a great fight. Forget about Paulo Costa, right? Like Kamaru and Khamzat is bigger than Paulo Costa and Khamzat.
A Nigerian nightmare is back. And if you thought Gilbert Burns was a step up in competition, which is a whole different beast.
This is the greatest sport ever conceived in the world, ever. Imagine Usman flatline KOs Chimaev.
Chimaev is coming off a win, but Usman is in unfamiliar territory. He is on it to fight Skid. Imagine saying that a few years ago, who's been losing 2 fights in a row sounds a little too hard to believe. But the current champion Leon Edwards knocked him out in a rematch and won a competitive but clear decision in the trilogy, who has been accepted the loss and stepped away for a little while waiting as the division sorted itself out. But even on the sidelines, he did have an opponent in mind.
A fight with myself and Khamzat, boom. And if he keeps winning, I think that...
I like that a lot, man. I like that a lot.
I like that too.
To the former champion versus the most dangerous contender in the division. The matchup worked like magic, but Khamzat was all over the place, challenging welterweights, middleweights, even light heavyweights.
Fans, they want to see me in Israel. Yeah, I'm bad matchup for him, you know. Everyone knows he's gonna lose the title. That's why they saved that guy. They built up him. They don't want to lose him like that fast.
Eventually, who's been read enough and decided not to pursue the fights?
So you want to tell me, the former champion, at this weight, that's #1 ranked in the world at that weight, that I need to move up to middleweight to fight you? Who are you? Who are you?
Yet here we are. Maybe this was destined to, on paper, these two are the strongest 170-pounders on the planet. That is known for smashing his opponents with brute strength and skill. But it was meant as a monster in his own right when the bell rings. Take cover, because these two are going to go right at each other in a test of strength, and they might just blow the roof off the arena.
Look at them on paper. They were both former welterweights. They're now both fighting at middleweight.
Personally, neither will have a definite advantage, and it will come down to cardio. Usman is one of the better conditioned athletes in the UFC, or at least he used to be. We know Khamzat as dangerous as ever with this quick victory over Kevin Holland. But there are a lot of questions concerning Usman, and he's still the same guy. Can he fight effectively with his busted knees? Was he ever that good?
Leon comes and shot his head and dropped that guy. I don't think so. I never be the same guy again.
Khamzat Chimaev is the perfect candidate to answer all that and much more. But when for Usman, and the nightmare begins all over again. But a dominant victory for homicides. And middleweight champion needs to start drilling wrestling. That I mentioned that the winner will be the next guy in line for the middleweight champion, Sean Strickland.
Understand, you're better than everybody, so just don't hurt people.
Khamzat tour through the welterweight division. This was the fight we wanted: invincible contender versus the invincible champion. A lot of change now, but this matchup is still magic, now amplified. Upon winning the vacant lightweight title at UFC 280, Bislam Makhachev was declared the second coming of Khabib. We were constantly told that this guy was great, but against the Bronx, he surpassed everything said about him. He was good elites, otherworldly even, and the lightweight division was his to rule over.
Obviously, he's going to get compared to Khabib because, you know, they're basically brothers and they grew up. He's like Khabib, but I think with better submissions.
But his next fight was against the king of featherweights, Volk, was in the cage at night, and a super fight was announced for UFC 284.
Champion versus champion, super fight. You literally cannot make a better fight than that.
As expected, Islam opened up as a massive favorite, and he was expected to mold a smaller guy.
This guy is so small. I'm gonna stop this guy. Like what I did couple minutes ago, I can do the same things.
The featherweight champion was impressive, but he didn't have a chance in hell of competing with Islam.
I don't know how he's taking this fight, but if he thinks it's going to be easy, I guarantee you he'll be struggling.
Fight night, the featherweight champion rose to the occasion like very few expected. Islam was not able to overpower him, and towards the end of the fight, Volk was the guy on his feet, while Islam was looking to survive to the final bill. The decision was awarded to Islam, but he didn't feel like an absolute winner. The aura of invincibility had cracked in a featherweight was responsible.
Short but strong.
Even before UFC 284 people that sort of talk about Volkanovski as a possible all-time great fighter, especially after the trilogy bout with Max all the way. But now, there was no denying it. Alexander the Great was coming for that top spots, and he's returned to 145. He defeated G.A. Rodriguez with minimum effort. The next challenger was waiting for the champion right outside the octagon, and Volkanovski versus Poirier was a compelling matchup. Lightly return was imminent.
Oh man, look, we all know I want that lightweight belt. You know, we all know I want that rematch. You know, I want that Islam fight. I think not only for me to get that belt, for me to get that win back, but I think it is a massive fight for the UFC as well.
Two champions had unfinished business. Volkanovski had defended his title, and now it was up to Islam to remind the lightweights. He was still the champion of 155. We were all set from a hotshot versus Oliveira to a deeper dive was already out, and streaming sites were at the ready, but Bump suffered a bad cut in sparring and had to step away. Now why on earth would take a short notice? Championship fight against Islam. No sane light. We would accept a suicide mission like this. But one phone call later, got ourselves a new main event, Islam Haisia versus Alexander Volkanovski 2.
The big rematch that we've wanted, not under ideal circumstances. That's probably one of the caveats. But nevertheless, it's a bloody damn good fight.
Before I go on about the technical aspect of this fight, can we take a minute to appreciate this madness?
Like, I don't have to prepare for the worst. I don't have time to prepare for the worst. That's why I think I'm going to be the more dangerous than I've ever been. I've never really had this sort of mindset going into a fight. My pressure is so clear of what I need to do.
Luke is at a point where every fight is important, as he has the weight of greatness on his shoulders. One bad loss, and it will start all over again. Now he was never any good, but the featherweight champion doesn't give a fuck. Coming off a surgery and accepting a short-notice fight against Islam in his own backyard, this isn't playing greatness. This isn't a mortal type shape because no one else would step up the way Voges did.
A lot of people are going to be, there's no way, you know, short notice, he's crazy. A lot of people won't do these things, but...
Now then, who wins this rematch? You know how it goes with short notice fights. I really don't know what's going to happen. Luke is maybe a week to prepare. But on the flip side, Islam was preparing for trials and vastly different fighter, and you know that he will be a little on the edge because the replacement fighter pushed him to the limits.
Because on one hand, you got Islam, who he's had the full camp, he's preparing for Charles, but then you got Volkanovski, he hasn't had the bumps and bruises of full camp.
The first fight, the keys to victory, went a little something like this. Volkanovski, who had dominated Mixalto, he was supposed to be the far better striker. Islam, who had strangled the Bronx, had a massive advantage on the ground. But during the fight, the grappler was willing to contend with Volk on the feet, and the smaller, shorter, and weaker featherweight held his own in the grappling.
2 minutes of the fourth round, might have been the third, as I'm saying the story, Islam's on the back of Volkanovski. Now, Islam's got a pretty good position. That's it. And his face was getting peppered by Volk, who was doing this. He looked like a cartoon character, right?
It turns out these two are evenly matched in strength and skill, but Volk had the edge in cardio. Towards the end, Islam was exhausted as this was the first time the champion had gone 25 minutes. While his opponent was still fresh, ready to go for another round, there was a little talk of a bad weight cut for Islam, so maybe he will be better conditioned this time around.
And if Makhachev doesn't move away, then he's going to either run into a clinch, run into a takedown, or run into a counterpunch. I think it was the second round of the last fight, he was doing a really good job of stepping through and slipping off to the side and throwing a right hook to the body.
At the same time, Volkanovski, who now knows that he can get back up from the ground, will pressure a lot more than he did the first time around. With a featherweight champion via 100% likely nuts, but to take this fight for a reason. And if anyone even has a chance to win a short notice fight against Islam, it might just be Volkanovski. He has proved time and time again, he has unlike anyone else on the roster. And if he pulls this off, we seriously need to start considering him as an all-time great.
What does this do for that, if he's able to pull this one off?
He's already, in my eyes, one of the best of all time to do it. He's up there with the Frankie Edgars and Demetrius Johnsons and the Jose Aldos for what they've contributed to the sport.
Short notice fade and setbacks aside, Islam has an opportunity to right all the wrongs with the Charles rematch. He had some proving to do, but against Volk, he can rush that blemish for good with a finish or dominant decision. Abu Dhabi is his backyard, and he'll be cheered amped up, and will even have more time to rehydrate. So many questions, so few answers, so much anticipation, and a long, long way to go. The winner of this will most certainly break in the next sphere of greatness, and we just have to wait and see who gets it done in the main event of UFC 294. Like I said, after 24, this was destined to happen.